Welcome to this week's piece. So this is a lovely, lovely old kind of bookshelf secretary combo. It's one of my most favorite things to work on. You guys know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, secretaries just have my heart. I feel like they do so much in just a small amount of space. So this one was missing quite a few pieces. Also came with an extra drawer that did not go with it. So maybe that just made up for the pieces it was missing. And then also I had a stack of boards that came with it that did go to it. So it's nice when it comes with at least most of the pieces. Now, this has been refinished at least 3 times, I would say. And right now I'm pretty sure this was a roadside find, if I remember right, but I've had it for a while. I haven't started working on it because there was just quite a bit to do to it. And anytime there's a ton of stuff to do, I like to make sure that I'm in the mood for it before I get started. So for this, I'm going through and removing all of the detailed pieces, all of the old nails and things that were throughout the entirety of it. Now these wooden appliques, they're a mix of pin nails and glue, so I'm just using a heat gun to loosen up the glue and remove those gently with a putty knife. You might get some breaking, which is fine. You just have to glue it back together. The quicker you can get it glued back together, the better it's going to be. So I did split a couple spots, on one spot on this one and one spot on the other one that's on the top. And I just glued those back together really quickly. They didn't fully break off. They just kind of split a little bit when I was trying to remove them because the wood was so dry. And then I'm just going through, like I said, and removing any of the old nails, things like that, taking off everything. I'm breaking it down as much as possible just because it's going to be easier for me to sand that way and to kind of assess everything. Because it's been apart for so long, the panels that were out and the shelf that was out, I want to make sure that I can get everything put back together right, and it's easier to do the more it's broken down. So, and then when I got to this point, the glue was really, really strong and it was all put together well, so I didn't worry about taking apart those. You can see these, they're old sanding little squiggles. These were some of the largest ones I've ever seen, and this is actually a smaller section. But I'd never seen the little circular squiggles that the sanders leave. These ones were huge. Some of them were over a centimeter in diameter. And I was like, wow, that is large. I've not seen them that large. Usually they're little tiny squiggles, but they were over the entirety of the piece. So this was the longest sanding job, hands down, that I've ever done, just because I was sanding this all back. And typically you would just have to take off the finish and it wouldn't be a big deal. But since I also wanted to make sure to get all of those marks removed, and oak is a hard wood, it took forever. And oh man, I was sad at the end. And typically I don't mind sanding that much. It's not my favorite job in the world, but it doesn't depress me or anything. But this one I was like, oh man, my body felt it. It was rough. So this project right here is what caused me to spend the most money I've ever spent in my life on a tool. I haven't used it yet, so we'll save that for a later date. Anyways, I'm just going around and making repairs to any of the splits in the wood. You can see there's a chunk missing off that back corner. That's not a big deal. I'm not too worried about it. But I do want to get any repairs done that I can, that are just quick, that I can get glued up so that it can be drying on this side while I'm sanding off all the other boards, because I really am just sanding everything down to the bare wood so that I can get it prepped for the finish that I'm going to go in with. At this point, I'm still not sure what I want to do. I'm just kind of making sure that it's in a good state for me to go forward with it. I know that I don't want to paint it. I want to keep it in its kind of natural wood look, but I couldn't leave the finish that it had because it was just too much. It was too imperfect. Typically, I like the patina and things of old wood, and I'll leave marks and things like that. That doesn't bother me, but all of those sanding squiggles, it was too much for me. So that's why I decided to go all the way back. Now with these are the backer boards. I only need to do a scuff sand on these. I'm just taking off the finish to make sure that it's free of any kind of debris that's sticking up, old glue, things like that. Because I just need a surface prepped for wallpaper because I'm going to add a wallpaper to the backboard. Now this top piece has to be sanded all the way back because it's going to get the same finish as the rest of the shelf. So that just makes it easier. That's why I removed the appliques and the little, little wooden circles. Those all got removed so that it's easier to get everything sanded back. And like I said, this took a million years. I'm pretty sure I got gray hair from it, but it's fine. I survived. All right, I'm just cutting in with some thoughts like I usually do. So initially I thought they had just done a really bad job on this repair, which not that they did a great job because it's very there. But what I actually think happened based on the wear here and the different grain pattern and different color of the wood, I think that maybe they lost the other side of this or something, so they cut a completely new piece of wood and put it on and attached it that way. That's my guess, like I said, just based on the wear there and the color difference in it. And that also led me to think that perhaps that same person added this routered edge, because the whole piece is put together well, but then the routered portions of this is not the best that I've seen. So here you can see it's kind of crooked and wonky. Here they've completely sanded it off, and the same here. Sand it off. And then up here they got rid of the edge. So that's what I'm thinking, that maybe this didn't have this originally, and as they were fixing it, they were trying to add their own kind of fanciness to it. And yeah, I don't know. But that's kind of the fun of these old pieces, is that we don't always know. Okay, so I'm going to finish sanding this behemoth and hope my arms don't fall off. Cannot wait to get my new sander so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave this. I thought about going over it with the router to smooth it out, but I'm worried about how much more that's gonna take off, and then also having to match the other side. So I think I'm gonna leave it in its charming little wonkiness. All right, back to work. Now that I have the sides and the top shelf sanded, I can go ahead and try and get that back in. And then get that glued up so that it's ready to go with everything else. And then, of course, there will be more sanding after this. So I am using hide glue on this entire piece just because the age of it fits. And I mean, if we're being honest, I just really love hide glue. So there's quite a bit of discoloration on this piece. That just makes me kind of want to do a light wash. This is Pebble Beach. It is not a white. It is more of a cream color. And it has almost a kind of green undertone. It's very neutral. But this top shelf has a huge water stain on it. So I'm going to do oxalic acid on that, see if I can't get that lifted. If not, it'll just be part of the piece and that's fine. But I'm going to at least try this first. I'm going to do 2 rounds of oxalic acid, get it cleaned off, and then while that's doing its thing, I can at least do a wash on the rest of the piece. I've decided to leave the edges dark and I will leave the appliques dark as well, just to have some contrast and some interest in it. And also leaving the dark edges on the routered portions are going to kind of hide some of those imperfections that are in them. So it'll still have the charm, it'll still be there, but also kind of hide the really damaged parts of it. So those are kind of my thoughts here. And then this wash was just super, super easy. I just sprayed the wood down with my mister bottle. I took barely any paint on the tip of the brush and then wiped it on, and then I wiped it back with a cloth. Super, super easy. So you can see the little crystals that formed from the oxalic acid. You can also still see that huge stain, which was kind of annoying. Again, this was after 2 rounds. It did not work at all, so that's a bummer, but it is what it is. I'm going to clean this all off and then I will wash this as well. So for the missing little scalloped edge piece here, I just take a scrap of oak that I had in the shop, and I'm using the piece from the other side because the outer portions are just a little bit wider than the inner portions. So I'm using that to kind of help me figure out the size. And these are not actually cut perfect. So if mine aren't perfect, it's not the saddest thing in the world. But I'm trying my best to make sure that they line up with everything else and that it'll go on smoothly. So obviously I'm using the pencil, using the other one, and then I'm going to use my coping saw to cut this out. Now, normally I will use a chisel or a saw to kind of get a flat edge to give me something to work on, but because I don't want to take any more of this off than is already missing, I'm just using my sander to give me a flat edge. And you do have to be careful with this because you don't want to round any corners or anything like that, so just be very careful if you're going to use the sander version. Like I said, typically I like using a saw or something else that will give me a nice smooth edge. But I just didn't want to remove any more material. So got the pieces lined up, and then I can just glue, clamp, do all the things, and this will be ready to go. On this portion, I actually did not use hide glue because this isn't a joint or something that I want to be able to come apart later on. This is an actual wood repair. And I never want this to come off. So I did use the yellow glue because it goes into the fibers more and it's not a reversible bond. Now I'm going back to the wash. I kind of just work back and forth as certain things are drying and getting set up. I can work on something else and I kind of bounce around a lot just so that I'm always able to do something instead of waiting for everything to be done at once. Now I was missing a couple of these little half round circle things. They're not even full half rounds, but they're little rounded wooden circles. So I'm using the same kind of scrap oak that I have, and then I'm using one of my angled chisels to mark out the edge so that I get the right size. And I'm going to cut those out and try my best to make these. Now, this was sent to me by Vevor. They are amazing. They're the ones that sent me the planer that I have, and I'm so thankful for them for sending me this and the planer, and thankful for you guys that I am even on the map for somebody to send me something. I just think that's incredible. But this is like a little multi-tool, like a Dremel. It has tons and tons of little things inside that you can, it has so many uses. I haven't even been able to go through them all, and I just started playing around with this. It has all kinds of sanding bits and polishing bits and carving things, and like there's tons of stuff that I haven't even got to mess around with because I haven't had anything to kind of work with them. Little tiny baby saws, which I thought were super cool. But for this, I was like, you know what? This will be perfect because I really had no idea how I was going to go about making these little pieces. So I was like, this will be fantastic. And I mostly just used the little sanding portions, and they worked out so well. But you could see there's like little drill bits in there. I don't know. They have all kinds of stuff in there. It's just the coolest thing ever. So I'll have the link for this below if you are in need of something that does a little bit of everything. Yeah, I'm attaching this tiny saw on here. I don't need to. This wood is so thin, I could just do it quickly with my pull saw or the coping saw, but I just wanted to try this out and it was really fun. So yeah, teeny tiny saw, if you ever need one of those, that's in there. Anyway, so I'm just going to get this thing cut out, do those little round bits so that I have them, and like I said, this will be linked below if you need something for everything. Once I got those cut out with the saw, I just used the little round sander and I rounded out all the edges. And then I did the same thing to the top, just kind of made it dome shaped, and I tried to make it as close to the original shape as possible and did my best. This was my first time creating weird little half rounds. I think it worked out really well, and I think they turned out pretty good considering. Now this was the raw oak, so obviously I needed to stain it. I had to do a few different colors of stain to mix to get the original color that was on them. Just plain walnut wasn't quite dark enough, and it was a little bit off tone, so I added a little bit of Jacobian, I believe, and that just a teeny tiny amount of that over the top of the walnut seemed to match the originals very, very well. And then I also refreshed the originals. It was time to glue all the appliques back on, which was really, really satisfying. I thought this part was so fun. You could kind of see little marks where the original pieces were, so I just put them in those spots. And then of course I refreshed all the other things. I had to hand sand these, so it took the finish off. So that's just why I'm adding a little bit of the walnut on there to get them back to normal. And then as far as the edge goes, like I said, I wanted to keep that dark, so I just spritzed a paper towel with water, and I'm getting off any of the wash that got on there, because this still has a little bit of the old finish, so this comes off really, really easily. And then I can also refresh this as well. I'm going to seal the entire piece with the Helmsman polyurethane. And I'm doing this with a roller. I've been really loving the roller. I feel like I haven't used it in so long. And then like these two pieces, this piece and last week's piece, I kind of did them at the same time. It was just really fun having that and just busting it out. You still have to use a tiny brush to kind of clean up any foaminess that you get from it, but yeah, I enjoyed that. It was nice. I did seal these pieces separately just because obviously it's much easier than trying to do them attached. So I sealed the board first, and then once that was dry, I added the applique to the top, which of course was also already sealed. I used the same pin nails that were already in it, and then just did a tiny bit of hide glue in there too to help hold it in. They had the teeny tiny pin nails that were set back in, and they had previously used a type of filler. So all I'm going to do is do a little nail punch in those to get the nails pushed all the way back in and get them recessed. And then I'll use my wax to fill those. These ones, the nails got a little bit jarred, so I'm just using the pliers, making sure that they're straight and they're going back into the original holes. That way I can get them pushed back in and done right. So you'll see me fix it with the pliers, and then I'll do the glue and everything like that. I just want to make sure it fits on before I start gluing things and making a mess. This piece did get several coats of the poly, so I always do a light sanding in between each coat just to make sure that it has a really smooth finish. And then I want to make sure that this especially has a lot of coats on it because it is a desk and it will be used, and I just envision people setting their drinks on it because that's what people do. You might remember these from last week. I actually did this piece first, so this is in reverse for me, but these are just the high heat melting waxes. They're incredible. They're very, very, very durable. Again, this little device here that comes with it, it works great when the batteries are alive. The batteries die very quickly and it's annoying. So I'm just throwing that out there. The actual product itself, though, is fantastic. And then it comes with tons of colors, and so you can kind of match as you go. So you can see I'm using the lighter one to kind of fill in the cracks and stuff on the light part of the oak, and then I can use the darker ones to fill in the pin nail holes on the appliques. Just super handy stuff. And then I'm going to apply the backer boards. I will use pin nails and hide glue for this. These can be removed later on if necessary. And I want these pieces to be able to be redone again if they ever need to be. I think that's kind of important, especially with the old ones. So I try and make sure that when I do things, I do them so that they have the ability to be fixed or go back to their original state or anything like that. I just want to make sure that they have as long of a lifespan as possible. As I said earlier, I was going to do wallpaper on the back of this, and these are all very neutral colors, and I thought I really love this. It's sweet little birds and bird cages. I love bird cages. So that's the route I went with this. I feel like it's a very neutral palette, and it'll go with a lot of things, and it is very vintage feeling to me, so I felt like it went well with this. I'm applying it with my wallpaper paste. This has the adhesive on the back already, so I like to use a lot of water with it because it will use the adhesive from the wallpaper, and also I'm adding it just to make sure it really sticks. This was not the best way to go about this. I should have laid this down on its front, but I wanted to make sure the wallpaper was fully lined up in the back, so it was kind of a pain and I should have done this differently, but it is what it is. And then I just go ahead and get all the hardware put back on here. Make sure everything is functioning and working. That little drawer came in handy. It held all the hardware pieces from this piece. If you know me at all, you know that if there is a lock on something, I really want it to work. So this one actually was in great repair, which is awesome. It was just missing the escutcheon. So I can make one of those, which we'll do in a bit, but I like to make sure that it has a matching key. So I just have a key ring full of old keys. You can get a whole key ring of them on Amazon, and also from antique shops and thrift stores and things like that. You can go through and search. A lot of times they'll just have like a bowl of old keys. If they have those, buy them. You will almost always be happy that you have old keys on hand. And then you just go through them and find which one works. Sometimes I'll get a couple that will work, and I just choose the one that works the best. I was kind of bummed about this because I have an actual brass escutcheon in my shop in Portland, but I don't at this shop. So I'm just going to make one and then get it painted to match. Here I'm just deciding the ones that I think will work best, that will fit the piece and also fit the key. You kind of have to make sure that both work. There were several that I thought would work, and also I like to pour extra when I'm doing any of the molds because you don't want to waste resin. Well, I don't want to waste resin anyways. So while that's setting up, I'm going to go ahead and finish filling out all these little holes here. And then once those are done, we can get the escutcheon on. We're going to fill in the old Discussion pin nail holes because obviously we don't have it and it's not necessary to have those. We'll get those on there. This stuff is just, it's so great. You get it on and then you scrape it off and it fills just perfectly. So like I said, I did a few of these and I'm just kind of going to go through and figure out which one I like best and which one will suit the piece best. And sometimes just looking at them in the molds is not the same thing as putting it on there and enjoying it from that perspective. So I thought I was going to like that longer one, but was not a fan. I did, however, like this smaller one, and I felt like it suited the piece better, it fit the key better, and all was right with the world. So what I did with this is I gave it a shot with some gold spray paint, and then I actually used some brown paint to go into the recesses of it just to give it some age, and then I sealed it up. This is an extra unnecessary step, but I love tassels on these old keys, so a lot of times I will add these as well. Oh hi, Taryn here with Elegant Upgrades, and we've got our finished piece. You can really see most of it here. This was more of a refinish, just with the little added touch of the wallpaper, which I love. It can easily be removed, and this piece is kind of back to its original state. We did a ton of repairs, obviously, because it needed them and it had some missing pieces, which I love doing. I think it is just, it's so gratifying being able to bring something back. I did try and give it a little more interest with the two-toned wood. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I think it might have to grow on me some. I thought I was gonna like it a lot more. Like, I love this portion of it, but I'm not sure about the like little dots on the top or about the edge. So for maybe another two-tone look, I might consider going lighter on those portions. I think maybe had I gone, you know, instead of how I did the wash here to prevent the wood from yellowing up too much with the clear coat, had I done just the solid paint on this, I didn't want to paint this because I think it's lovely. So that's why I opted to keep it dark, because I really just, it was based off of this main thing and then the one little piece at the top, because I love it. I think it's beautiful. So I didn't want to paint it. But now with the, I don't know. But this was a joy to work on. It's probably the most sanding I have ever done, and I have not the best sander right now. My old sander that I loved over the summer blew up. So I had to hurry and get a cheapy one. I think that one's from Walmart or something like that. So it's not expensive, it's not great. It does sand, so there's that. But so after this project, I went ahead and finally invested in a legit sander. So I'm very excited about getting it. It's already been delivered to my house in Portland. I'm getting ready to head up there again, so it'll be there when I get there, and I'll be very excited to use it. And I will let you guys know if there's a huge difference, because we're talking a ton of money, like hurt your soul amount of money for that sander. So I'll let you know if I think it was worth it. But after sanding this, just because it's so hard on my hand, like, you know, where it does the tingly vibrations and everything, that was, after days and days and days of sanding, I was like, man, it's not good for my body to do it for this amount of time. So I know that the times should be cut back. I did tons of research. The time will be cut back, and also the weight of it's different, and it's supposed to be very good, like lower vibrations and things like that. We'll see. I'm really hoping that's the case, because I was like, oh, getting too old for this. Anyways, I love this. I think it's super cute. I do think it will go to a specific buyer. It's not a for everyone piece, but it is very close to original. The finish that I got with it was obviously not original. While I did like the color of it, there was just too many swirl marks in the old, so it took me, that's really what took forever, is getting out all those swirl marks. And this is oak, so it's a really hard wood. It's a little harder to sand through. But yeah, overall, I really like this. I think it's a darling piece. And I'm pleased with it. I hope you guys learned something. Thank you so much for being here and following along. And I know this isn't one of my typical painted pieces that I do, and I know some of you are just here for that, but I hope you just find joy in these kinds as well, because I know that I do. Again, thank you so much. Photos to follow, and I'll see you guys next week.